Welcome to this event sponsored by the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies, of which I am the director. It's also sponsored by an endowment from the Luxic Foundation in Chile. So this is, of course, access to affordable medicines and pharmaceutical research and development in Latin America. One half of the equation of solving problems of disparity, the other half being education. I was just speaking with one of the chairs here, Dennis, about the similarities and the problems, in policy and political will and slowing progress. So that's something that I think will bubble up today during these events. So I'm the director. I'm the first scientist director of one of these centers for an international center of any sort, really. And certainly this one, Latin American studies. I'm an evolutionary biologist. I work in Latin America throughout my career. So I've had the honor to meet folks from all sorts of disciplines, but I think the idea about having a scientist here was to help grow the sciences and the arts out from the core of our mission, which really always centers for these international centers on policy, political science, social studies, and history. So we're meant to be broadening. So I have the honor here. Our mission is like that of all of the centers at Harvard, of which there are about 40, believe it or not. There's about a half a dozen or so for international centers, but we also have a center for the environment. There are centers for global health, as well as centers for China and in various other regions. So we all have a common mission, which is to serve the research and educational interests of the Harvard faculty and students. And we can do that in several ways. We have a grants program, we can foster internships, but an important pillar, apart from supporting the engagement of Harvard faculty and Harvard scholars in Latin America, is to bring Latin American scholars to Harvard. So we bring about 10 to a dozen each year through various endowments and gifts. Veronica Vargas is one of our esteemed visiting scholars this year from Chile, sponsored by the Luxic family. So that's a way in which these ambassadors from Latin America can make connections at Harvard and have the maximum exposure to the ideas here and vice versa. So it's been a wonderful mixed model of engagement. So that's basically our theme. And of course, this symposium is extraordinary in that way, in that it brings individuals from across Latin America, from Argentina, from Chile, from Brazil, via video from Cuba, Mexico, also from Europe and from Asia, and from international organizations like the World Bank and Pan American Health, all together here in this one forum, which is somewhat off the radar, I understand, from the big discussion about pharmaceuticals, which is big pharma. So those are the big companies, right? And the policymakers. But I'm hoping that the connections, and Veronica's hope, is that the connections started today, that this seed planted will fruit into various connections between all of you, with each other, and with the university as well. So we hope we can foster that through this symposium and follow-up. So let's see, the symposium, of course, is a great example of this model. And with inequality increasing and the aging of the hemisphere's populations, the importance of sharing medical advances between partners and countries has never been more important. Tom Friedman wrote about 13 years ago that the world is flat, and it's real, but disparity has increased. It hasn't decreased. So I think if it's flattened at all compared to 30 years ago, it's because of science. Because there are partners in different countries and different scales that can participate, in the common good of developing new drugs or developing new treatments or developing just advances and insights into molecular biology in particular, which has become a common language really among all of the institutions engaged in this enterprise wherever they are. It's remarkable to me that some of the great advances have come out of Latin America, out of Cuba, out of Brazil, out of Argentina, developing new strategies, new vaccines, for example, and drugs attacking or aimed at diseases that might be underserved in the sense of they're not the big name ones that get the giant foundations' attention. They're smaller ones that serve, nevertheless, a very important constituency, both in Latin America and here. With climate change, we're going to see increasing incursions of vectors such as Aedes albopictus, which is now appearing in Massachusetts. It's a vector of dengue and of yellow fever, as well as several other viruses, including Zika and chikungunya, in Latin America. And it appears in Massachusetts every August in the past 10 years. That's happened, and that they're going to keep going north, man. So, this partnership is in everybody's best interest. And I'm sure I don't really know about the incursions south of the equator, but I imagine these mosquitoes are also going down into Chile and Argentina, where they never were before. You all can address that. So let's see. The thing that I've been most excited about in the past few years, I see that is being focused on here, and it's the harnessing of the immune system to fight cancer. So that's an extraordinary and an obvious field that's been developed with respect to vaccines, but it turns out that the very same mechanisms can address, our bodies attacking themselves. So I think that's extraordinary, and some of the best new promising treatments come out of Cuba. We invited Cuban scientists participating to come today, but they couldn't because of bureaucracy, of course, on both sides. But there is a video, I understand, that you'll all be able to see. So it's an extraordinary trio of panels that we have ahead on pharmaceuticals, on access, on exchange, on research and development, and then you'll have a roundtable discussion at the end.